So thanks everyone for joining this episode. We are really lucky today. We'll go into a little bit about how Steve and I met. It's strange. There's a lot of people in the same circles, and he's had a very similar history to myself. But we're joined today, Steve Sallis, former teacher, 17 years in secondary education, former vice principal, and then has transitioned into a world of consultancy around leadership and youth development. But Steve's going to coin that much more effectively than I am. Little bit of a why. I always want to explain what's the purpose of this whole episode, or past and future episodes. I see so many people out there in the on LinkedIn and in the networking education without people really understanding these people are out there adding unbelievable value in areas that schools can really benefit from. Steve's one of those, and Steve's been, I'm just going to give you a little bit of the rap sheet here. So Steve is featured on the High Performance podcast, I believe several million, I think from my research, it's nearly 10 million downloads. Worked with the under 15s, as mentored people like Jude, under 15s England squad, by the way, youth development, mentored people like Jude Bellingham. Featured on Netflix, Sunderland Till I Die, has been given the National Treasure Award, featured on the BBC. And the key one here is author of 2 books, one educating football that was really successful and is still discussed today. And now a book that's been released relatively recently, which is How Not to Be a Leadership Dickhead, which is my favorite title I've ever said on a session ever. That's sold 11,000 copies and is still in the top 100 selling books right now. So when I said I was lucky to be talking to Steve today, I didn't really, I didn't take it lightly, because we really are. Steve, welcome. I'd love to just know a little bit about, any of those things, and probably a good kind of starting point would be to talk a little bit about that transition from education into what you're doing now, because that, the work you've been doing is, the most important thing for me is the work you've been doing is having such an impact on young people and organizations, because I know you do work with businesses. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that transition and how did you get into what you do now?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Legacy, I'm going to start with that. You've got a title here, Brett, called Empowering Learners. I'm like, no, we could probably call that Empowering Teachers as well today. So I think that'll be important, and giving them a little bit of a G up. There's some really selfless, amazing teachers out there doing some cracking things. So I think big up to you teachers doing great selfless work. But the truth is, around the legacy piece, Brett, is obviously the myth of education is we're meant to help the kids. And when I was working in Lewisham and Greenwich, which I did, worked in 4 special measures schools for 2 decades, I expected nothing back other than me getting satisfaction of adding value and helping young people. And then in 2013, an ex-pupil texted me, and he changed my life. He was 30 years old at the time, a lad called Chris Ether, absolute nightmare in school, in a Southeast London school, and evolved into this mature, amazing man. Now owns a business called Active Kids, dealing with special educational needs in sport. And he texted his old PE teacher and he said, Mr. Sallis, there's a job going at Millwall Football Club. And then to the side of my degrees, I have my coaching badges, and then never thought I'd get the job. And in 2014, January, I left education, and I was about to go and do my NPQH. So that's important to mention. I was about to go and do my head teacher's qual, and then did my first love and went back into pro football. And I was originally at Brighton as an academy player for 8 years, so that wasn't that random. And my first degree was in phys ed. So yeah, the story goes, teachers who are listening now, you think you're helping them. No, if you help them, they'll help you. So that links nice and transitions into servant leadership. Great leaders, they serve you, and crap leaders, you serve them. So yeah, that's where we're at, bud.
So, there's so many places I want to go here, because I got a lot of friends who were on the journey to becoming pro footballers. One of them went and played in the Premier League. Another one played in the Championship for a long while. And a lot of people also, when did that journey start? Did you not make was it the old school terms of people listening? You'd be a schoolboy and then you become a pro. What was it, that transition? What happened?
Well, I played against a player called Frank Lampard all my childhood, and you realise quite quickly there's levels and there's levels. And I think let's bring it back to teaching. I've never known an industry where there's got so many people with the same qualification, and the variation of quality in the classroom's mad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A great little theme called "The Singer, Not the Song" in my first book. The song's your content, and there's a singer who brings it to life, and not in a rude way. In Southeast London, who wants a boring teacher? So, and my self awareness branding in my business. This is really important that I share this. I fluked self awareness at 21 because the kid said, "Mr. Sallis, your lessons are shit." So I go to swear on a Tuesday morning, and had the kids in Lewisham not said to me, "Your lessons are rubbish," guess what? I wouldn't have known. And then when I'm at conferences, I always share if you work in a middle class school, maybe guess what? Mum and dad have told their children to be really polite to their children, to teachers, and then for you don't get the truth from children. But you know, and I know, we've both worked in South London or anywhere in a city, not just in the UK, around the world. You get
Yeah.
told the truth by certain children. So I then got told I was rubbish. All the kids are saying, "Mr. Pell's better than you, sir. Mr. Pell's better than you." And guess what? That really hurt me. So look in the mirror, not out the window, do some deep, serious reflection and get better. So yeah, I'm obsessed with improvement. That's one of my one of
That
my strengths, I suppose.
that's so I moved to I taught in Bermondsey for a decade. So we're talking literally you could probably we're a short chip away from whatever schools we were teaching at. And the people used to say to me, "What's it like?" I said, I actually really love it because the kids are so honest, so honest." And they're like, "What do you mean?" They'll just tell you. They'll look you. They just don't like. I don't like you. And you work in a school previously, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, sir." And then you kind of get this attitude, "Well, you don't really like me that much," but then they don't. The kids in Birmingham just, "I don't like you. When are you leaving?" I preferred the other teacher. Oh, okay. Why is that? Well, because he did this and he didn't turn up to lesson, a bit late, saying he's got excuses. Like, when are you leaving, or is he coming back?
Yeah,
And
and
like,
and I think, yeah, sorry to interject. I think if we
okay,
relate this to leadership and connect before you correct, there's so many leaders that go into schools and just start telling people what to do, and they don't know anything about you. Let's refer adult to adult. So connect before you correct is huge, and I think that applies to children, that applies to anyone. And obviously, I work in pro football these days, so I'm really mindful of making sure I keep my mouth shut. Standard, do a gap audit, and just watch and listen, and stop going in and thinking you've got to make major change. You just sometimes you've got to step back and call it zooming in and zooming out. So, any teachers listening here that are aspiring to be great leaders, the first thing you do is just keep your mouth shut and listen.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's probably a whole episode, and we might touch a bit more on leadership as well. I do want to talk about the work you do with schools, because obviously my audience, given the fact that I used to be a teacher and founded Pupil Progress, is a lot more embedded in coalface education, principals, vice principals, teachers. Now, you do a lot of work directly with schools, which is really important to mention. You do school CPD, which is a very popular offer for schools. It's basically targeting and creating high performing teams within education. Now, I know that's something you also deliver to other organizations, but it's working really effectively in schools. And then you've got My Future Self as well. Can you talk a little bit about that CPD you provide for teachers on high performing teams? Because if the teachers are performing well and the teams are cohesive and they're high performing, the students benefit. And that's what sometimes my school certainly forgot. It was students first, which we absolutely are doing everything we possibly can to serve our students. But at the same time, we've got to make sure our teachers and we're leading in the right way, so our teachers are in the best possible state to affect the classroom. So a little bit on your work with CPD on high performing teams would be amazing.
Now, I think the first thing is what I realised as a young teacher is that I'm working with grown adults, and I've got a great piece of language called lens and how we see the world. And I don't see the world, Brett, how you see the world, and you don't see the world how your daughter sees the world. And I think aligning lenses is a key part of high performance. So then we're looking at sort of this character caliber piece. the caliber, every teacher in the building has got a teaching degree, and then that's standard. But then where's this character piece, and how we, not me, are we in an institution? How selfless are we? And really getting people to look in the mirror again and saying, look, what can I do to be a better human? And I think I've never known an industry where we talk about lifelong learning for adults and kids, and then I've met so many teachers who walk down the corridor, and I call it the corridor of doom. They just blank you. So there's no excuse for teachers not trying to become better humans as well. And it's very research led. I asked teachers to stand up and sit down if they know certain methodology, and most of them sit down because they don't know it. So I'm in a really privileged position, to be honest, to be able to have zoomed out since I've left teaching, and I have got more time than I was when I was a teacher to really add value to my toolbox in terms of research led approach to behavioral psychology. So that's the first thing, and then I think it's just really fundamentally about making people be more reflective on what they say, how they say it, what they think, what they know, and what they do, and almost just become the opposite of institutionalized in their own being, and how that connects to conversations, tonality, voice. I've got a simple task, which is what's the difference between a team of people and a group of people. 15-minute task, away you go, and really getting middle managers as well and heads of department just to reflect on what is a team and what is a group. And the final story, one of my inspirations around this was when I line managed music. I had 3 music teachers, and I didn't realize until I did a bit of a deep dive, 2 were soloists and 1 was in an orchestra. And I was thinking, why are the 2 soloists a little bit more me, and why is the orchestra, from her background, from her childhood, why is she more we? And then do some deep diving, and you realize that maybe there is a correlation between people's childhood and adulthood. And because we were PE teachers and played sport our whole childhood, being selfless in a sport every single weekend and every single midweek is just normal. So that's not necessarily just related to PE teachers. I'm just saying that if you've been involved in team sport as a childhood, I think you're 10 times more likely to be more like-minded in that respect as an adult. And all I'm saying to schools is just be careful. There's lots of, from a sincere angle, there's lots of the teachers that haven't got that lens. So we've got to help them with what high performing teams look like.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my experiences, and I mean, I've got a wonderful story, and it's quite self-deprecating because I think we don't value the importance, not the power, the importance of training with regard the word leadership. So the staff turnover was insanely high. Within 2.5 years of me being at the school, I was head of department. And then within like 4 years, 4.5 maybe, I was, one of the assistant principals. And Steve, there was a point in time where the whole department hated me, literally hated me, because I'd learned from people above me about, well, what this is the way in which we should do it, because that's how he does it, and that's how I'm being told to do it. And then I had to move out. I would like to consider myself now, I'm very driven. I've got, hopefully clear expectations of what we're trying to work on and the vision we're trying to achieve. But I had to move out of the office because no one had sat me down and said, right, okay, there's teaching and learning, there's processes in the school, and then there's this word leadership that we've got to start working on. Otherwise, things aren't going to work. And the whole environment was so toxic. And it took that fast feedback I remember, I'll never forget this. I got one of my mentors said, sit down with the person who is the most frustrated and just get them to tell you why it is they don't like you and what it is they don't like about the way you're leading, and just absorb it. I swear, honestly, Steve, I had a list of, I think it was something like 56 bullet points. I just said, right, I really appreciate it. I'm going to come back in a couple of days. There's some things I can do here, some things I don't know what to do with, and there's some things I know I'm not going to be able to do because they're coming from higher up. And then that was day one of, okay, great, you've listened a bit. And this is why I wanted to share this, you in particular, with and connect more with the education audience, because if we don't get leadership right, we are losing teachers, because people don't leave. I'll get onto hard work. People don't leave jobs where they like their the people they work with, because that's their enjoyment of their work, unless they really found something they don't like. So your work is absolutely critical, and it probably navigates on a little bit about the question of what is it that led you to leave education and go after this? Because you're quite clearly in search of not something bigger, because I'm not saying that what you're doing is bigger or better than a teacher. It's just a different bigger, you know? So what was it that led you to go, right, you know what, I need to come out of this to do this?
Well, the first thing is I got the job at Millwall, and then again, someone respectfully was talking about me when I'm not in the room. And the legacy piece again is how will people talk about us when we're not in the room, not when we're here. And then I had an opportunity to work for the FA. So I worked for the England national under-15 team, brought all my school strategy, all my school improvement stuff, donked it into Millwall, and then donked it into to that level, another level. And that's obviously where I met some of the world's best superstars these days. But unfortunately, education isn't very glamorous, and there's all these amazing processes in education, like your business as well, and what you're doing around the AFL and making things clean. Pupil Progress is making things clean, and there's just a lot of grey areas. So I think my super strength is teaching and learning, but now in a corporate world. And just saying to teachers out there that if you are a little bit stuck, then get yourself on LinkedIn and go and start looking at the amazing jobs that are out there. And every teacher I talk to that moans about their job, I say, you on LinkedIn? They go, no. I mean, and the reason I'm not working for LinkedIn, just so we're clear, it's the algorithms on LinkedIn are just so powerful. So I think like teachers, if you're in that stage of your career when you go, I can't do this for another 20 years, my advice to you is go and get on there and have a look and believe that there is a journey. I do think to myself, I did love teaching. It was everything that it made me in every single way. But I do reflect and think, oh, could I do that? I'm 47 these days. So could I do that at 47? And did have the energy. I'm the sort of all-in lunatic type guy anyway. So I was always all in with the kids and the staff. So I think, the singer and the song was always there. But I do think it's a young person's job. And I'm not, just so we're clear, I'm not relating that to everybody. I'm not saying an old person can't still be amazing. But I think that the systems and the leadership and the micromanagement, and I said this to you off air, you only need line management for crap staff. You don't need line management for good staff. You just let good staff get on with it. And people not smelling that. And let's take education out of this. And they're not smelling it. You've got to smell it. If people get outcomes with their classes and add value, and they get, contextual value added, so maths teacher's better than geography teacher, fact, leave them alone. Like, it's not, when I used to do like line management meetings, I want the heads of English, maths and science to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So like, it's this huge word in the middle. Ryan Halliday wrote a book, Ego is the Enemy. So that then links to the awareness of self. Can we be more aware of self, and can we try to manage the ego as leaders, manage the ego teachers? You even look at the teacher pupil ego. Oh, I'm a teacher, I'm in charge, you've got to do what to do. Like we've got to get kids to want to do things, Brett. Like we ask, here we go, you'll love this. We tell because we want things done. So get your coat off, get your planner out. But the meaning of true influence is that child has got to want to do it. So we tell because we want, but now they've got to want. So unless we start understanding about what motivates adults, children, how do we get children to want? How do I get a footballer to want to run, Brett? How do I get a footballer to want to run, to want to track back? Now, they're not told, and that then links to behavioural psychology. I'm asking, not telling you. Schools have still got warning 1, warning 2, and warning 3. Just call it ask, tell, consequence. I'm asking you. I'm telling you. There's a consequence. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to shout. You don't have to go anything weird. You just need to change language, change the narrative of how we influence. I mean, young and old. I mean, the world.
I'd have actually. We had a very similar thing in our department, and we had a separate building. And we had a lot of HMI inspectors come through. So you'll remember this in London at the time, Steve, when Ofsted was always looming over, no matter what time of the year it was, whether it was supposed to be in 3 years or whether it was supposed to be in 6 months. there'd always be a Mockstead for a Mockstead. So they'd bring in, you know, you've got Mockstead next term, right? But then before the Mockstead, they're going to do a review of your department before the fake Ofsted, before the real one, right? So being observed and being deep dived was just another part of the day, right? And I had a HMI inspector say to me, so why is there 180 kids that are running to the PE department and are changed, lined up in perfect lines in under 6 minutes, right? With immaculate uniform. I spotted 2 kids without socks and just took a 15-minute detention on the chin because that's what it was. How is that happening? And then in the main building, it's like chaos. And it's like, because I want to get back to this, like, why? Well, because when we actually create these structures and the students then want, well, the lesson's really enjoyable and it's safe and I get something from it and I'm getting value and I actually get an environment where I can connect with people. They want to get there. So yeah, there was a little bit of, you know, I added on top of that. I didn't really want to lose my break, but it also a lot of the kids. I'll get onto the basketball academy at some point because that was the best example of motivation I've ever seen about students. I want to do this, not I'm being told. I want to drill into this, right? Because the want and the motivation, I didn't want to bring pupil progress into this, but we've seen a huge shift in students wanting to revise more deeply or more engaged with their own qualification when they get given the report that gives them the information on it. So I used to say to the teachers, the students, I used to say to them, I know that you're not going into a career in sport, but I want to make this relatable to you where how many GCSEs do you want on your CV? You've got an opportunity with PE, even though it's not a thing that you want in your career. You've got another opportunity to add a 9th GCSE or a 10th GCSE to your CV and improve your chances moving forward, even though I know that I'm not going to try and convince you this is about a lifelong participation in or a career in sport. When they started seeing the value for themselves, they started to lean in and take action that benefited them. I'm interested to learn a little bit about the work you've done with students about improving their motivation, because I know there was a recent podcast you did about how you prepare students for exams as well. So what work have you done with students around that? It's not a direction for you to come into my intervention session, but I want you to want to come.
Listen, you know, and I know that's not a magic wand. So we've got connect before you correct. We've got pumping tires of kids. I've mentioned in the book number 1, the singer, not the song. The song's your content. All right? Everyone's got subject knowledge: English, science, maths, geography, history, art. But the singer bit, and if there's any teachers listening today, and not that you've got to be me, you've got to be the best version of you. That's the superscript. But these children are coming to me on the My Future Self project and just saying that there's no one inspiring them. There's no one bringing it to life. It's a bit like me sitting on a Zoom today going, yeah. Like, and I mean it so sincerely. And I think we get spoilt in South London because there's so many characters. In fact, I'm going to retract that. In inner cities, there's so many characters where you get economic divide that it just means if you haven't got a bit about yourself in the classroom, you're going to get ironed out quite quickly, right? So therefore, this ability to have awareness of self, right, and say, I need to improve. But I think because we got instant feedback, I remember teaching some girls and the girls went, Mr. Sallis, you haven't got enough visuals. Miss Connolly uses better visuals than you. And like, wow, okay, sorry, girls. I'll take that on the chin, and next week I will literally teach you how you want me to teach you. So that then links into, you know, my master's degree was in ed psych and leadership many years ago, and the learning to learn stuff. If I go into schools and I say, Brett, about meta learning, genuinely 60 to 70% of teachers colloquially do not know what meta learning means in an applied sense. Right, and unless we get, and this links to pupil progress perfectly, because unless we get children with absolute binocular clarity on what we need to do to get better, then there is just, I call it schools of doom. So what grade you at? Oh, I'm at a level 4. What you got to get to level 5? And the kid says, I think. And I said this to you on the phone last night. As soon as a kid says to me, I think, I
Mm,
immediately know you haven't actually got a clue how to get to level 5 or level 6. So the learning to learn stuff around, what's my summative scores? Where am I at? What grade am I at? And then the AFL stuff. What do I need to do to get to that next level with razor-like clarity is the key to, I think, any successful institution. And linking this to my business, I've written a book called Educating Football because I've then gone to players. What do you need to do to get better? And guess what they say? I think. And I'm like, look, you want to play in the Champions League. So we can't be having that sort of language. We need to go, no, Steve, I need to receive the ball on my back foot to play forwards. My sprint intensity's down and my distance covered, which links to data analysis. I'm not running hard enough. So great. That's what I want to hear. So yes, bringing in summative and formative techniques is massive. And I think if we link it to literacy, because I think this is a nice segue into literacy, because professional footballers' literacy is so low, they have an inability to articulate structured and articulate sentences which make sense. And if we link that back to my 10, 15, 20 years in schools where I'm seeing boys who don't want to speak, which then links behaviour for learning techniques because they don't want to speak because they're scared to speak. And then that links to the singer and the song because the teacher needs to create an environment where everyone can be their true, authentic self.
There's too much. There's too much to go into. But one of the things that I want to raise right now is I've said it in the past, and it's probably not the first time it's ever been said. But I've got this real thing about peace in the plan, and I love the fact you're talking about any institution as well, because this is directly related to education. And you you watched that video. I shared the case study of my daughter and giving her a really actionable plan created a reduction in stress, anxiety, and I suppose really for the teachers out there as well, not only us knowing exactly where each student is beneficial for the students. I also found as a leader, oh, okay, even though things aren't great, I've got very clear understanding of how I can get better. I can improve the results, or I can improve, said teaching and learning in certain areas of the department. And this is one of the reasons why I left to actually get this off the ground, was because I found myself enjoying my job more, and I found myself less stressed all the time because it wasn't this unknown all the time. There's nothing worse than working so hard and going, is that working or not? Don't know. Keep working hard. Go on.
Sorry to interject you, because I think this is important for younger teachers that are listening. Right, and I really need to emphasise this because I'm having a flashback to me teaching GCSE and being very average at it in my early career. So back before AFL became really rigorous and data drops became really rigorous in schools, I'm talking about the 90s. My head of PE would say to me, how many kids are you going to get through A to C's? And I'd go, 22 out of 30, and then I'd get 11. And a year later, I'd get 13. So my inability to teach well in my early career, and I say inability because I wasn't as able as I was later in my career. I think we can have all of the tools and the techniques, but this is then linked to leadership and culture. Everybody just needs to run their own race. And this is where empathy and kindness and love comes in. You can be data rich and system poor, is what I'm trying to say. There's loads of schools that are data rich, but the systems underneath the data have to be, we have to show empathy to young teachers, and we have to empower them and also take hits with certain year groups. But because line management is so autocratic and draconian, then teachers are under so much pressure. But what young teacher in year 1, 2, and 3 are realistically going to smash their GCSE groups? So I'm sure there's teachers out there that have done that, and if they have, then they were much better than I was. But that narrative of growth, and I think the final thing I'm going to say about working backwards, I worked in 4 special measures schools. If you ask me to sort out a failing school, because I've done it 4 times, I could work backwards off that. If you ask me to I've got 3 players playing for the England first team now who are clients of mine. If you ask me to create a world-class footballer, I can definitely do that. But the truth is as well, Brett, I mean, you're new into business like I am. If you ask me to build a really successful business, I can't do it because I've never done it before. And I mean that really sincerely. Like, I'm winging business. I'm just trying to be myself and be authentic. But if you ask me how to do it, I don't know because I've never done it. But if you ask me to speak to someone after 2 years of all the do's and don'ts, I'd be able to do that for them. So I think linking to learning, tell a player they will forget, show a player they will remember, and involve a player they will understand. Our ability to involve the learner as I evolved as a practitioner was far greater. So I think that's important that we all take care of our young teachers to let them evolve and grow at their own pace within reason.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I'm thinking about now. We had quite a young team, brilliant team, by the way. They came straight out of Brighton Uni, and they came and had some visit days at an in London school. I said, look, in London school is an opportunity for you because there's a lot of people in rural areas that don't move, and you're going to find it difficult to get a job. Whereas in London schools, they're going to, and we took 2 or 3 absolute first class students, so diligent. And then it was more about what do you need versus what you're not doing right, because they are at that developmental stage. The truth is, well, Steve, I look back, and that's that honesty. People, that integrity of going. I've had conversations with our whole Pupil Progress team and say, look, this is my first business. I'm not going to sit here and talk to you like this is my 10th. I'm not going to sit here and talk to you like this is my, I've done all these before, and my last business that we acquired and blah blah blah. Because it's not true. Because they'll look at me and say, well, that's not true, Brett. I know. I can see where your past history. So we've got quite an authentic. We're all one thing that I believe we're doing well is we're getting good advisors, which is, if you're really someone who's new to something, get some good advice, because you can't buy experience anywhere. But we had some NQTs in the team, and they were so energized. They worked so hard. And the thing that I also share as well, the amount I learned off them, I'd go and watch lessons sometimes, and they go, oh, were you happy? I was like, I came in because I think you've got great ideas. I'm nicking them for my class. And some of them were like, what do you mean? And sometimes I'd get some of them to run the CPD session. So, look, I've watched this lesson, and I know, like, Emily, you're going to go and run a session for the whole department because you're doing it really, really well.
And I have to share 3 one-liners. I love my one-liners, you know this, but these one-liners are mantras for high performance. So linking to your story, because this is relevant to your story, I'm not just making this stuff up as I go along, but linking to that young teacher. So the first quote I'm going to give you is this: everyone knows more than someone. All right, and everyone will always know more than someone. So this unicorn leader has to disappear, right? We, not me, and that in a truest form. There's some amazing people out there with some ideas. I think the empathy piece comes in when a young person might have an idea, but it might not be the right timing for, systematic change. The next one is strengths lie in differences and not similarities. Right. And I'm meeting lots of people, lots of businesses where they're not truly inclusive. They'll say it on a piece of paper, but strength lies in differences and not similarities. So having a diverse team, having men, having women, having people from different ethnicities, cultures, diversity, and all of these things in its truest form gives us a different lens to be able to impact the majority, not the minority. And the final quote I was going to refer to, which is literally I've remembered it now, is don't be an expert on the old version of the world. And I think this is so powerful for me, because as I get into my 50s, I'm not the cool young teacher anymore. And I'm meeting these players that are 21, 18, 17. I work with like loads of youth international players, and linking to Pupil Progress. All the stuff I do with them is AFL, really. And AFL could be, your business could go massive in professional football, because there is just this huge gap of players understanding how they learn. Technical, tactical, physical, psychological. That could be really clean in pro football, and learning, as learning needs to be cleaner. So I think as experts, notice my sarcasm, we have to be really mindful that we cannot be experts, in 1996 and 2005. We have a changing society. People keep telling me football's changed. No, society's changed. Football is a byproduct of that. Education's changed. Yeah, well, education's changed because we didn't have mobile phones times 30, times 30, times 30. We didn't have those distractions. So we therefore, as practitioners and educationalists, have to modernize our own lens to meet people where they are at. And the art of education is meeting people where they are at.
I think I wanted to actually talk about this expert on basically the former version of the world, because we're in this weird space. I'm not trying to cast an idea of how old you are, Steve. I'm about 20, 28, something like that. Is that right?
Yeah.
We've seen it all. Like, I remember my dad jumping around the living room because of the first remote control for a TV, and now we're seeing some of the most advanced technology in the same lifetime that we've ever seen. The advances are mind blowing, going from a TV a telephone that you still connected to the wall. So still mind blowing.
Yeah,
Talking to
just to interject you, in the Sallis household, my brother will love this. We had a snooker cue behind the sofa, so we couldn't be bothered and extend the snooker cue. So in our actual box telly, we put the snooker cue up and change the TV over like that, mate.
And so I used to have me and my brother used to have a fight of whose turn it is to turn the TV over, because you had, and then if someone knocked the aerial, and then my daughter used to say, "What do you mean the aerial?" I said, "You'd have an aerial on the TV." She's like, "What? What do you mean?" And I had to draw a picture of a bit of metal that's a circle, and you'd stand there, and then I remember people would muck up the signal, so you'd get them away from the. I mean, so sorry, I'm getting distracted and getting in old stories. The reason why I wanted to I was bringing this up. You mentioned the word school improvement. And always with school improvement, because I was part of that journey, and I don't think we maybe saw it as rapidly as what we wanted to have seen it in our school in particular, but it's happened now. I mean, the school now is a really wonderful school. It's been through several leadership changes, but at the moment it's really singing. School improvement, I want to get straight to the meat and the bones of it. If we start turning around the student body, we start to see changes really quick. You're going to come in, you've got all this fine detail about what policies and curriculum and all that jazz. But ultimately, a school is failing because the students aren't bought in, and there's behavioral issues and there's lack of engagement, etc. Talk to me. You can go as broad stroke as you want. You can go as granular as you want. How did you see? What were the biggest things that you did, or most influential things you did when improving schools, especially in those areas? Because I've done it for a decade and you've done it for longer.
Yeah, and do you know what? Listen, I'm your peer here, chucking some ideas around. So let's pretend we're in an SLT and we're banging some ideas around, and we'll apply everyone knows more than someone on strengths, flaws, and differences. Because you mentioned kids, and I'm like, no, that does my head in. Like, it's not about the kids, it's about the teachers. Because if the teachers turn up motivated every single day, then the byproduct is the kids just go and nail it. So I keep hearing, and please don't, I'm not an idiot. Like, of course, kids are important. You don't become a teacher if your kids aren't important, but let's flip this round and get the staff body happy. Get them feeling selfless and motivated and cared for. Let's create a level of psychological safety, not psychological stress. So listen, you know me, I've got a successful business for a reason. I'm saying now, stage one is staff. Like, it's mad that schools are still going, kids. Oh, no, staff. Let's get a body of staff that feels so psychologically safe. And as Brené Brown says, wearing armor, they are wearing no armor. They are shedding their metaphorical armor, and they are their true, authentic self every day. This then links hugely to leadership. Model the behavior you want to see. People see, people do. Pick up the litter, put it in the bin, talk to children respectfully, teach solid lessons. Notice I say solid, not outstanding, just teach solid lessons. Just be 7.5 out of 10 every day. I don't want you to be 10 and a 5 or 10 and a 5. 7.5 out of 10 every day. And as Ofsted, and Ofsted are respectfully, not my cup of tea anyway, but one thing they did say back in the 2000s was an outstanding school is one which is good every day. So I think let's just get back to 7.5 out of 10, brilliant basics. And I know you probably wanted me to go really airy-fairy on teaching and learning, but let's get the staff coming to work and I repeat, wanting to come to work. Right, with smiles and grace and high levels of EQ and high levels of self-awareness and high levels of selflessness and kindness and respect to each other, because we already know the job is hard enough. And teachers like I know teachers. Some teachers, unfortunately, talk to you like you're about 9 years old. And some teachers, I call them the people look that don't see. They just look straight through you. They talk at you, not to you. So again, unless we get that piece right, the behaviour of the professionals, we're never going to make a schooling better. So I know I've gone on about stage one, but stage one is just making sure staff feel safe and want to come to work.
I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself now. I 100% agree. I used to bang on about this all the time. What I was saying is the school is failing because the results are poor and the students are not engaged. Exactly what you're saying. I'm glad you said it, as in that's your go-to, is the students will be happier when the staff are happy. And that's music to my ears. I'm sure it'll be music to teachers' ears hearing this, because I had some scenarios in I'll tell you two quick stories because I want to get on to more about, but I was getting in at like 7:10, and I was using a milk box to put some milk in my cereal. The vice principal told me, we doing? Why are you doing that? So that's for tea. That's like, I've literally caught the R5 train from Brighton to be here at 7:10 to get ahead of my day. And you're upset because I'm putting milk in the cereal. And then the worst one was, Brett, after these results, and this started the journey for Pupil Progress. After these results, Brett, just so you're aware, we're going to leave this meeting. Just so you're aware, chair of governors, head teacher, vice principal. Just so you're aware, if the results are like they are this year, you're reapplying for your job. Was the close to the meeting. Not what, Brett, you know what? There's so many, you've got insane energy. What you've done is brilliant. There's some areas we really got to work on, and they're going to be our focus. What is it you're getting distracted by? What it was just, that was the closing statement to the meeting. And I'm going to have a review meeting at this point. So on that line of staff, what else did you really embed to actually create this environment where staff started to go, oh, actually, do you know what? It's not that bad here. It's not as bad as because doing my leadership masters in leadership, we learn about negative story. How did you break the negative story?
Kindness, Brett. You know what I'm like. I'm quite an all-in person, but if people know me intimately, I'm all in with love as well. So kindness, empathy, understanding. The first thing we did in one of the schools I worked at in West Greenwich was go down to the shops for a week. Carnage in the school. We're like, look, we need to start connecting with the shopkeepers here. We need to start being human. We need to not start saying we apologise for what's gone on. And you will now see a more visual SLT and non-SLT, so we're clear. And I'll tell a story in a minute. You will see a more visual on the streets as the kids leave the schools. And in any school or anywhere in the country, that can be tricky at times. And so linking to this, we asked teachers who weren't on SLT to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday to go down to the shops to help us. So again, I repeat, we asked teachers as an SLT to go down to the shops to help us. Some did, some didn't. No problem. I appreciate not everyone wants to do that at the end of a school day. But when we're talking about influencing people again, we're not telling, we're asking. And that then links to our own behaviours and our own modelling and our own time, because it is at time and energy. And and I know some head teachers will model the behaviour they want to see, and some head teachers and SLTs won't. So the ability for any human to I think it's about equality. Actually, I think your title on your door, you can live by that, or you can choose not to live by that, and be one of the soldiers. And that adaptability, right, as a leader. But I will say this to stick up for leaders: sometimes SLT have got to learn to be better followers. And there's loads of SLTs that are complaining and moaning about the head teacher. I'm thinking, well, no, you've got to learn to be a better follower. Otherwise, you go and be a number one. So I think that leader-follower relationship, which I discussed in my corporate training, is really important, because head teachers have got a the most difficult job. And it's my brother's a head teacher, and a lot of my mates are. It can be quite lonely, can't it? So we have to respect the lens of others at all levels of hierarchy.
Yeah, and you know what? That's really interesting about being a good follower. Because if I look back, there were times where I wasn't a good follower, and it doesn't surprise me now that I'm doing what I'm doing, because I could make. And actually, one of the things that happened to me was I became someone. This is a true story. I became someone. I asked myself, would I want to work with me now? And the answer was no. I wouldn't want to work with me, because I'd become very difficult, and I hadn't become a good follower. And our head teacher at the time, he had some faults that I really didn't stand by, but he did use this thing called collective responsibility, which I never understood. And now I understand it, which is, look, I've made a call as the leader of this organization, and I need people to take responsibility and support the team with the implementation of this, you've just simplified it for me, which is wonderful, which is, I just need you to be a good follower. I've got to make a call. I'm a human being. Can you get on board with this? And can we see if it works? And if it doesn't work, let's roll our sleeves up and try and learn from it. But it's amazing to learn about this. It's such a simple thing, but I've never heard it articulated like that before.
Yeah, and I'm going to just blend this in with another piece of methodology around the professional personal. I've never, ever heard a senior teacher or any teacher say this: that if we can embed strategic change and cultural change and systematic change with bigger strategies. So let me apply it for you in an operational sense. Everything I say to you, Brett, between 7 in the morning and 9 at night is always professional, never personal. Now, I appreciate I've got to act like that, but let's just say we've got more people in the building saying professional, not personal, professional, not personal. You don't drive home and go, oh, Steve Sallis doesn't like me. No, Steve Sallis, my line manager, didn't like that piece of work that you did. And that separates it. It's the same as the behavior with children when we look at, behavior for learning stuff. It's not that, and I'm upset with you, I'm upset with your behavior, but there's so many things. The Carol Dweck growth mindset, Brett. I mean, please, we've got Carol Dweck being rammed down kids' throats in the 2000s. And I'm like, forget the kids, look at the teachers. We've got teachers saying, I'm not doing a cover lesson in that subject because I can't teach it. Get on with it. Like, muck in. And you need the great teachers, the great ones out there, they muck in. Yeah, they are the soldiers. They are the followers, the leaders. They are mentally agile. So I think if we go back to teacher training, I'm getting a bit of a cob on now, but if we go back to teacher training in universities have got to do a much more dynamic job, much more. Unis are just ticking boxes. And then as teachers, senior teachers, we're inheriting, some good NQTs, but some NQTs that are not aware of this teamship thing. But I will stick up for youngsters because I've got a different lens on all of it. It is also about leadership and making sure people feel psychologically safe. And I know there's many schools that people are not feeling that.
Do you know what's an interesting word for me, kind of leaning into this conversation a bit more deeply, is that word hierarchy. And I'll explain, because I understand there's an importance of a hierarchy. There's loads of benefits to it, but there's loads of negativity to it if it's not administered correctly. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper. The amount of schools I go into, and they'll be like, I'm just going to see if the head's available. Let me go, and I'll just ask the PA. And it's like I'm going to see if Barack Obama's available. It's not. But then you go into some schools, and then the head will be like, oh, hey, getting on. Oh, yeah, come and sit down. and I'm like, okay, great. It doesn't stop that person being the head teacher, but there isn't this fear around them. It's no, I've got big responsibility. We've all got I've got to make a decision based on the feedback I'm getting. I'm still the head teacher, and I'm still in this position. I've got different responsibilities, not more, but we can all have a conversation about it versus this, I need an appointment. Now I get it. You've got a day, you are going to need an appointment. But I've worked for head teachers in the past where it's like, you've almost got to give a little bit of a documentation as to why that meeting's important and what, and go on.
No, do you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about how much credit, as managing upwards, how much credit have we got in the bank with people? So I'm just going to sidewind and then I'm going to come back. The sidewinder is I've got a member of staff that hasn't had any issues with behaviour for about 1,000,000 years. And then guess what? They have an issue with behaviour. I'm like, oh, I'm all in as a line manager. I'm all in. And then when I was a younger teacher, I got hit with a 5p coin once and cut my head open. And quite a deep cut, those little thin ones, quite deep, and blood was splurting genuinely everywhere. And I went to SLT, and the SLT guy I haven't spoke to him in like 3 years, and like, are you going to deal with this? And it's just some of the things just so obvious. Like if I come to you every day with an issue, then I'm pretty rubbish. So linking back to the head teacher, like it is a lot of it's common sense, isn't it? You're not being busy going to their teacher like every 5 minutes. You're just doing it once a term, and you expect just to be shed in. But that ability of systems, the comedy sketch back in the day, computer says no. So I'm just going to remind listeners: people first, people last, people always. And unless we, data rich, system poor, there's loads of my analogies around how we can be flexible around systems. And I know I've kiboshed your story, but
no, not at all.
You just need to be knocking on that door, and you just need to get stuff done, don't you?
What's fascinating to me is Pupil Progress is a great example of actually we got a whole. It's crazy, and it sounds so trite and so cheesy, but it's that understanding. It's even more so in business. It's in like it, how important it is for everyone at every level, not only to be delivering, but also understand that you at this level, theoretically, all the way up here, none of that exists without the people doing everything at not lower level, at any, let's take out the word level, just areas of the business. And in business, we've got some trusts that have come on board recently, and that's because of how fast the onboarding team have done it. That's how fast the support team get on board. I've experienced a few head teachers in my time, and the one that always stood out to me the most was the one that it was direction without integrity. So it'd be like, right, it's kids first. It's kids first. I'm like, you get in at 8:30. You're in at 8:30 in the morning, and you come from a house all the way out of town. You don't know the community, and you're out the door at 4:30. And then you sit in a meeting saying, right, what are we doing for these students? Do you know what? Do you know how many staff get in an hour and a half before you? And do you know how many staff leave 2 hours after you?
I just want to link this in because those lonely times we've had in education, and I've had several. I think I'm just saying, if there's any teachers listening to this that are feeling a little bit down about their current place of work, there is a place for you with your name on it. You just need to try and find it. But I also think the legacy piece, never ever forget the legacy piece. If an ex-pupil does not text me, he doesn't change my life. And please just remember, and it's not about me, this story, but there is some great stories out there of you really helping people and you changing people's lives in a really small sense. But actually, from a bigger angle, all of your colleagues, they could get another job, and the first person they can think about is you. So can we get to that place of influence, friendships, connections? I'm in touch, I think, with every single P department that I've ever worked in. I'm in touch with the vast majority of people that have managed me, and I have line managed. That's my legacy. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
People, just about people. And also, I think this is really important. I need schools to help me pay my bills. So my relationships from all of these years ago are now helping me pay my bills because people trust me to go and deliver good content in their school. So I think I call it zooming in and zooming out. If any teachers are listening and you're just a bit fed up in Easter holidays, just remember that there are loads of controllables. And the controllables are be great to your kids, teach great lessons, and do the best you can. But also just zoom out and go, well, actually, yeah, let's think about that next job, because that might be the real door opener for a more sort of content. I say content because I think contentment's much better than happiness, but a more content life.
I'm actually going to share something here for those that are in their holidays. Something that worked for me. I'm certainly not expert enough to be advising people, but it's linked with the managing up and it's linked with the being a good follower. And one of the things that I implemented, which was linked to the same thing, I was trying to be a better follower and I also wanted to manage my workload better. So what I did was really organized what was being asked of me and how long it would take and where I'd be able to fit that in. And then asking the person who is my line manager to say, I'm all on board with new direction. I just want to let you know right now, here's my capacity. Let's talk about which one I can't do. And it was the simplest thing that started to just resonate. And then so much so that I came into a meeting, it was about 3 months of me just continually saying that language. No problem. I'm all on board. Here's a challenge, but if you still want to go ahead, no problem. Or actually, I agree, let's do it. Literally 3 months later, he's like, right, Brett, I would like you to do, we need to get this done. We've got this coming up and we've got to present to the governors. I don't need you to do that one. Can you move that down in 2 or 3 weeks? And I left going, oh, right, now we're getting to the good stuff, because it was so collaborative. I was being a good follower because that was what needed to be done, but I was also protecting my own time. So I wanted to say that because it's still something that we use in today's language in pupil progress. Is like, look, we want people to go home at 5:30 and not have to worry about their next day is insane. So what's coming off the list? Subtraction is a great podcast from Pixel. Just reviewed a book, Subtraction. But I wanted to talk about that that piece around teachers that feel guilty around leaving the profession, and that you're saying there's either a job out there for you, or there's also maybe a better school to go and work for. I've got some comments on it. What are your thoughts on that, Steve? Because I've got, having known a few teachers that are unhappy, want to get out of teaching and don't know what to do, etc.
Yeah, I'll share this story. I won't obviously name names in one of my books. I had a member of staff in the P department that had not been off work, I'm not exaggerating, for 18 months. She was going through a divorce. Obviously, that's pretty traumatic for any human being. She turned up late, and I reckon she got unlucky. She was the first time she was late in 3 years. London traffic. Vice principal comes up to me as head of PE. Oh, Mr. Sallis, teacher's late. Can you have a word with her, please? And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, acknowledge. In my head, I'm thinking, acknowledge, punish, ignore. And I'm going, yeah, I have a word with her. Yeah. No. I'm never in a million years speaking to my soldier, my ultimate soldier, about anything, because that is a metaphor for almost where we're at. And here we go. You'll love this quote because I love my one-liners. But in crap cultures, people see what they look for and they hear what they listen for. And in the second book, I've got a chapter called Gossip Gurus and Toxic Torpedoes. These people that live and thrive on gossip. And under my watch, business, education, professional football, don't do gossip. And I think when we're relating that, I know I haven't answered your question at all,
Don't worry about it.
but finding people that make you feel psychologically safe is the key to a successful life. Let's forget education. Hanging around friends that make you feel safe. I hear a lot of friendships around certain people are quite toxic. Like, why are they your friend then? Like friends are meant to be unconditionally selfless and kind and caring and respectful, and respect their lens. Everyone's got a different story. So another thing you learn about life is everyone has got a story to tell. So we have to be, I mean, the genuine word, I've said it a million times today, is empathy, isn't it?
Do you know what? Do you know what's insane to me is it? There's a couple of things I need to talk about. So this word trust, what I found fascinating in school versus where we are now is what business and what you're running versus what a school's like. And that we had the same culture. It's so and so's done X. We need to go and give them a warning, or we need to go and I need to send them an email and say this is effectively strike one in HR language. And you and I were cut from the same cloth. Look, what's going on? Let's just go and have a pint, or let's go and have a coffee, or let me give you a phone call tonight. This ain't like you. You okay? What do you need? And then it comes out versus this, strike one, you've done. And what's insane in education, if so any school leaders out there, I'll never forget, there was a girl, and it's so relentless in education, in teaching is very specifically, where I remember she was set to get married in the summer and she's in tears in the staff room. And I said, what's wrong? Talk to me. My fiance broke up with me last night, moved out, right? Wedding's gone. I'm like, he's moved out. And I'll never forget this. And I've told this story a few times. She looked at her clock, wiped her tears, got herself sorted, had a little look in the mirror, she had an handbag, and I said, right, listen, I've got to teach these year 11s period 3. And I'm like, this is world ending stuff. It's not like, oh, do you know what? Someone scratched my car or whatever it might be, right? It was like life changing stuff that in the education sector is like, get on with it. And we've lost that. Hold on a minute. What can we do? And there was one lady, I didn't even have the authority to do it. And she was really struggling. I won't name names. I won't name the department area either, but I just said, go home. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I said, just go home. What about so-and-so? I said, don't worry about it. I'll cover your lessons. I'll walk in the door. I'll tell them that Miss has got a really important, go home, put some DVDs on, because they've also had some life-changing news. And you can't just go into a lesson and just park that, because it's psychologically damaging.
And I think that their ability to press pause and call it the BPW, breathe, pause, and why, like what's your why, what's their why, and people just need to, I think if we relate this to pupil progress, children need to breathe, they need to press the pause button, and they need some systems to be able to know where they're going. And obviously, I mentor head teachers, many, and they sometimes ask me for professional support. Sometimes they ask me for personal support. But again, the whole person, it's a bit like these children. Thousands of children turn up at our door and we just crack on, and like robotic teachers wonder why they're not behaving. We just don't know, do we? We just don't know anything. We're with them for an hour every couple of days. Why would we know what's going on at home? We just don't know. So I think, that pausing is something I've learned, just so we're clear on that. It's not something I did in my 20s. Just the ability to reflect in the moment. They call John Dewey and Donald Shon wrote a book called The Reflective Practitioner. I think 19 whatever it was, but reflect in action. No, reflect in the moment is an art. Instead of just blurting out stuff, reflect in that moment. And the key to success, I think, is enhanced by clarity, isn't
it? There's so much you want to talk about, because I feel like we're quite similar. Every time you say something, triggers something in my, because someone taught me something once, which is amazing, that if there's some kind of conflict, or there's some conflict resolution needed, someone gave me some unbelievable advice years ago, which was push pause on it, have a quick chat with them and just say, we know we've got to resolve it. You let me know when you're ready and where you want to meet, just for us to talk this through. I don't mind if it's a couple of days. I don't mind if it's this afternoon. I don't mind if it's next week. But let's just all decompress from it and then let me know. And then when they felt in control of where we're meeting and where the resolution's going to be, and some of them be like, I want you to come in my classroom. No problem. Let's go to the classroom. Let's sit down. Let's just talk it through. And then gave them a couple of days to think of just some wonderful advice that the importance of being psychologically safe at work is top of my list for our staff, for me. People start to feel psychologically unsafe. There's people that have worked for our business where I'm like, you're starting to go down that route of people not wanting to work with you, and that's a problem, because I don't want people feeling that anxiety the day before coming into work. That's a bad thing, right? I wanted to lean on teachers leaving, and I'm aware we've been going for a while because you're one of those people I could talk to forever, Steve. But what would you say to because I want to explore this a little bit. What would you say to teachers who are potentially looking to leave the education sector? Because I've got two very quick stories. Barnaby, our co-founder, I believe he's found his groove in life now, what he does and how he works, and what he's involved coming out of teaching, because it was the right time. He'd done a lot for education. He was a brilliant teacher, and now he's co-founder of Pupil Progress, and he's been, the architect of our whole entire platform. But I've also got another story where one of my friends who I used to work with, I thought it'd be brilliant to come and work for Pupil Progress. After his exploration, turned around and said, actually, Brett, this whole process has actually made me realize I've always wanted to be a teacher. I've worked really hard to become assistant principal. I want to stay in teaching. So I've got two things where I'm always leaning and explore, because one lent in and explored and wanted to go, and it was best for the students, best for him. And then the other one lent in and didn't want to go, and they realized that and now he'll probably become vice principal, probably become head teacher. And he really realized, he's like, actually exploring this, Brett, nearly going, I realized this is what I should be doing. What are your thoughts?
Well, the truth is, some of my times I'm the loneliest man in the world. So I've gone from having teammates to having no teammates. I present, and then I go home in the car on my own, and I present on my own, and I don't have those teammates. So me having a business might look all glorious, but it's not always as glorious as people think. I think you got a good life, just a different good life. So I always loved teaching, by the way. I absolutely loved it. So I've always loved work. I think, yeah, if you're going to change, then maybe just dip your toe in the water, maybe try and get the day off a week, and maybe transition and hybrid out. I think that would be the best thing I do. But then teachers always go, oh, the money. And I'm like, well, I mean, I dropped 30 grand a year to leave teaching, go to Millwall. So people think we're the other way around, we are professional football and loads of money. So, and I know academy coaches don't get anything. So listen, you can't have it all. I've had to make some serious sacrifices financially. And I don't have any, I don't want a medal for that. It's just the decision I made. So I've had to, make sacrifice. And all I'd say to teachers, if they are looking to transition, is you're going to have to make certain sacrifices, which may not benefit you short, but will benefit you medium and long. If you look at the growth of your business and how well you've done in a very short space of time, you should give yourself huge credit for that as well. And if you said to me 10 years ago as a school teacher, and it is only 10 years, well, 11 years, I'd written 2 books, I've been on Netflix, 5 Live, Talk Sport, and a podcast with, 100 million downloads, then I would have laughed at you. So I'm just a guy on my journey, Brett, running my race. But what I'm trying to say to people that are zooming in education, outside of that, charities desperate for good school teachers. There's businesses, learning development sections where I think teachers could add really value in businesses, HR, all of these things that teachers just may need to zoom out if they want a career change, which is, they're out there. But LinkedIn is a no-brainer for it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because today's Pupil Progress's 11th birthday. You got the memo with the blue T-shirt, because I'm about to go in the office and we're going to do a photo to celebrate our 11th birthday, right? Now, so the day that got incorporated. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is the grass is always greener. My belief is you got to go and roll around in that grass to see if it is greener or not. Go and cross the bridge, whatever that metaphor is in your mind, walk across the field, wherever it is, and go and smell the grass, go and taste the grass, go and feel the grass. Is it as green as what you think it is? Now, in my world and my lens, love the language, by the way, lens, is the grass for me was greener personally. Now, that's not to say that now my grass is greener for everyone, because it's been an absolute slog. You know, my wages when I left to start Pupil Progress, I was paying myself £17,000 a year at 34 years old. Right now, that was my choice and my sacrifice. I don't need the violin. So going back to that second story of the guy that was going to looking at, he realized the green was the grass was as green as it can be where he was right now. And it was great for him because he was just like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to really invest in this because I don't think the grass is greener. I know it's not. I've explored it. I've sat down with Brett. I've actually understood what my working day's like. I've pictured it. I've gone and met him. I've gone and actually seen the environment that I'd be working in. And I don't want it because the grass is green. It's lovely, but it's not as green as what I've got it on my own field and my own garden.
Yeah. And game of life. So I can't speak on everyone's behalf. It's the game of life. What I want people to understand my end is you get this, you lose that, you get that, you lose this. So what keeps me up at night? It's a question I ask on my corporate training. What keeps you up at night? And sometimes it might be family, sometimes it might be work, sometimes it might be finances, sometimes it might be our relationships. So just balancing that cycle of high performing lives is what keeps us up. And sometimes, if I'm honest, finance can keep you up. You're like, where's the next job coming from? I mean, clearly I'm not in that position these days, but when I started, I was scrimping and scraping, mate. Just like hanging in there and knocking doors down. So you become, well, that sounds crazy, you become a bit of a salesperson, don't you? You have to, I mean, well, here's the irony, you are in sales, but I am also in sales, but it's just called leadership keynote speaking. So I've got to get people to want to employ me. And also what I will say is this is, not in a weird way, I'm not cheap these days, but pay cheap, pay twice. So people want things for nothing. I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. I'll help people out if they give me a little bit of continued work, but pay cheap, pay twice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating thing. We've had a few schools that have said, look, you're okay, we can do it ourselves, and they've come back, or they've used a different system, and then they've come back and realized that actually we're going to get the value. But what I will say is, for teachers listening and leaders listening, it is worth seeing how green the grass is, because a lot of people just think, I've always been a teacher, but the skills that you've learned over time, Steve's a great example of this, is how much you've learned that's now applicable from mindset, from research, from education, from experience. I remember, I always tell this story. I was on the train and I was overhearing two girls talking, and they were talking about just being so nervous about this presentation, and it's in like 5 weeks time, and there's going to be like 8 people I've got to present to, and that was consuming them for 5 weeks. I was just thinking, how much work is not getting done around the worry of presenting to 8 people? And I just think about a teacher, how many times have you spoken in front of 500 to 1,000 people, or have you every day you present to 30 kids 6 times a day?
Right there. Someone said to me recently, Steve, oh, it's a bit weird. I said, what's weird? They said, going from a school teacher to a keynote speaker. I said, what? What, those things called school assemblies? I said, if school assemblies were called keynotes, I've been doing them since '96. Mad, isn't it? Got 350, 400, 500 kids that don't want to be there. And now I've got 400 that do want to be there. I said, I know what's tougher.
Yeah.
Mad. Yeah.
Well, we I mean, slightly funny anecdote. We had a head teacher who used to get booed by the kids, because there's too many of them. They worked out. They're like, what are you going to do? You're going to put 1,000 kids in detention. Now, if I was a head teacher, I would have done. I'd have rang every parent and said, listen, but we wouldn't have got to that stage. But what's funny is, when there were certain teachers, if you're on after that and you're like, are you worth, if you were worth listening to, they were key things. Like, I need to give something here that is worth listening to. Otherwise I'm in the same. So it's almost like being a comedy, a comedian where people just don't like your jokes. And then when you go and talk to a bunch of, you go and talk to teachers, or you go and talk somewhere and they actually want to be there, you're like, oh, actually, this ain't too bad when you've been, talking to kids in Bermondsey that will tell you if your assemblies are rubbish or not, or whether you're worth listening to. Steve, I do want to, do you know what I want to do is actually, I think it's probably a good time to kind of wrap it up. I want to remind people of what you do and how influential you could be in schools. I'm going to try and pin you now at some point in the next few weeks. I'm not talking about next week, but maybe hopefully in the summer term, I want to actually have a focused conversation around some of the pupil mindsets and motivation. Because the thing that's come out for me today is I think you've got so much gold in there, having worked with so many incredible young people. Like I was saying, you used to mentor people that play for England now, and your influence in school. So I want to do another session with you. I want to remind schools of what, Steve, what's available. You can come into schools and work with your staff on high performing teams. You're doing a project around my future self. Talk to me a little bit about my future self as well, because that's also really invaluable work for schools.
Yeah, I'll try and spit this out succinctly. So, will my future self thank me for what I do today? It's all the things, just so we're clear, the teachers want to say, but probably not allowed to. It's a bit edgy. I've got loads of, I do it to mainly cohorts between year 10 and 13. I do like a 40-minute keynote, and then I have workshops of about no more than 20 kids back to back, which are repeated in the same way. And really, we get that deep diving on what these young people want to go and do, what they want to go and achieve. One of the tasks is they've got to write down 30 jobs they'd absolutely hate. So if they don't come out with a job that they want to do, they at least go home to mum or parents and guardians and say, "Mum, Dad, I definitely don't want to do this." And they're just a little bit closer to their destination. They obviously also have to do what I call it the what, the how, and the why, what they want to go and do, how they're going to go and get there, and why they want to go and do that job. So really, it's just a more strategic deep dive into really helping them. And what's really funny is some schools are like, "No, I want it linked to exams," and I'm like, "No. Listen to me. This is linked to exams, but it's just not directly linked to exams." It's mad how some schools are just like, "No, will it add value to results?" Well, no. This is getting them to think about their future self, so they will get the results. So anyway, that's probably the easiest way to describe some of the difficult conversations I have, because it is a mindset project, but it has been proven. Now, even St Bonaventures in East London, in Newham, we've had some really good results and value added in there with their year 10, 11 cohorts with the project. So it's been, pupil premium budgets often, but not always.
We talk about it all the time, is people overlook, they go straight to C and D and don't think about, well, you've got to go through A and B to get there. And it's that whole, why would a student want to go to an intervention session to get a better outcome, to improve your A8 and P8 score and your value added? Because at the moment you're just getting them to, we need to improve our value added. What do we need to do? Well, we actually need to create an environment where the kids care about their own future. And if we're talking about, I had this exactly the same with my daughter. What do you want to do? Don't know. I said, well, okay, let's think about what lessons don't you like and which lessons feel like 5 minutes when they're 2 hours. Now she's doing a marketing degree because art was, that felt like 15 minutes and I've been here 2.5 hours. Sociology, writing, that felt like 20 minutes and it's been 2 hours. Well, what were the lessons that you hate, which felt like 4 days because only 15 minutes have passed? And then you start drilling down and going, well, okay, so let's link this to this whole exam and value added, right? Because if they start creating a path for you, and then they start going, oh, I better come to intervention on Thursday, then, don't I? Well,
and listen, and sorry to interject you, the Ikigai, it's Ikigai. Do something you love, do something you could get paid for, do something the world needs. And the world doesn't need more selfie takers, does it? So if any head teachers are getting annoyed with that narcissism from children, I'm the person to say, look, we don't need more selfie takers. We just need more your young people that are going to add value to the planet, but they're going to do something they love. They're going to do something they're good at. And if anyone follows Gary V on Insta, Gary V is the man, because Gary V is just saying, look, schools are exam factories. We've just got to get kids to a place where they love going to work. Like, you can love work and get paid for it. And I also ask the kids what parents of their parents hate their job, and genuinely 50, 60, 70% go, yeah, my mum and dad moan about their job all the time. So can we just be in a place where we get these young people to not moan about their job?
Steve Sallis, thank you so much. I am going to get you on for another chat because I love the fact that it quite beautifully. It's gone in loads of different directions, but that's, for me, that's where the good stuff comes out, because it's right there in front of us. Make sure that you visit solutionmindset.com, connect with Steve Sallis on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find it under solutionmindset.com, and you'll be able to type in his name, connect with him. I know, because I've spoken to some head teachers and schools that have worked with Steve. I know he's really big in football. I've got friends that have also played, but I know the influence he's having in that space, especially around high performing teams. So definitely check him out. Thanks for your time, Steve. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you for having me. And before I finish, I've also had some great feedback from Pupil Progress from head teachers who I've connected you with and said it's added huge value to their school. So I think that's important. That, again, let's remember that sometimes blind spots in all of our world. It's important that we are open lens to the world, right? So thanks for having me, Brett.
Appreciate it. Nice one, Steve. Speak soon.
See you, bud.